Thomas, thanks for jumping on the pod, bro. I really appreciate it. It's taken a bit longer than initially when I asked you if you could jump on. So thanks for being a bit patient and thanks for coming on. It's great to have you here.
Glad to be here.
You originally from the UK, right?
Yeah, from the UK.
All right. Where's about?
Liverpool.
Okay, Scouse.
Yeah, a little bit of a toned down accent though. I'm like on the outskirts of Liverpool compared to some of the Scousers that you might hear.
Yeah. There's a guy from the UFC, Paddy Pimblett. He's pretty staunch.
Yeah.
Like he's got a serious twang.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I was watching his YouTube videos that he's got on.
Okay.
He's got a few like he does a YouTube channel,
Okay.
and some of they're a good watch if you've not watched any of them.
He's hilarious.
It'll show you a lot about his character. He has a little bit of a doesn't give a fuck mentality, let's say.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. I think his persona on UFC is like one character, and then he's got this other character where he's quite philosophical and he's got a good heart and stuff. But his banter's like it's hilarious. There's another thing about him too, where he blows up after competitions. I don't know if you've seen it. His nickname is Paddy the Baddie.
Yeah, Paddy. Yeah.
And then when he's done, it's like Paddy the Fatty.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, cool. You're from Liverpool. That's something new. I had no idea.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah.
And went to school there, uni there, everything.
Like,
did all your education that side?
Grew up there. Yeah.
Okay.
Went to like uni in Manchester, but I still commuted to Manchester like every other day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, man. What did you study, if I may ask?
Completely unrelated to what I do now, but I studied building surveying. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So done the whole, obviously you leave school, go to college, figuring out, okay, what do I want to do? An uncle of mine was lived in like a nice area, had a nice house, drove a nice car, and he was a building surveyor, and I was like, okay, that seems like a good job. I'll go and do building surveying. So obviously went to uni, studied building surveying for like 2 years, got a job as a building surveyor studied for like 3 years, got a job as a building surveyor for like 2 years, and then was kind of getting a little bit sick of it. I wasn't enjoying like sitting behind a desk doing like a lot of the job wasn't very like fulfilling, you know. Went traveling with my girlfriend, and then after going traveling for like 6 months, during that time you get a lot of like kind of free time to think about what you want to do. And I was like, okay, when I go back, I'm not going to be a building surveyor. And then obviously pursued a career in personal training. So
amazing. It's quite interesting, man. The amount of people that I've spoken to, especially around the GCC, they've always started outside of their passion. And I feel that like when you have someone that actually took I wouldn't say the liberty, but just took the risk of saying, fuck this, I don't enjoy what I'm doing. I've got a passion for X, Y, and Z. I'm going to give it a go. And at the end of the day, what's the worst thing that can happen? You know, you just fall back onto what you studied or what you did previously. Now, a lot of it's obviously easier said than done, don't get me wrong, but it's beautiful to see that at least you took the risk, you pushed yourself into this corner, which most people struggle to actually just do that first step. And you pursued to carry on in the fitness realm. I wanted to ask you as well, did you play any sports in school?
No, I was never really into sports, but like looking back, I kind of wish I did have some kind of like group sport or being involved in a team. The only sports that I did do was like boxing, like martial arts, so like karate, Thai boxing, and I was into motorsports as well, so I used to race motorbikes. So even though from Liverpool, I don't follow football at all. So every time I speak to someone and they're like, "What, you're from Liverpool and you don't follow football?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, football doesn't interest me in the slightest. Really, I've always been into like motorsports and like combat sports, so like boxing and
motorsports, like superbikes or
road bikes.
Okay,
well, both. I had off-road bikes, but never raced them. I kind of that was just for like a little bit of fun.
Okay,
but then I raced like the road bikes, but 450s.
Okay. There is a massive motocross community here in Doha.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Well, I know Marty.
Modern Chalmers.
Yeah, so he came to the gym
Okay.
for a couple of weeks, and then he had his motorbike accident. Yeah.
Every 3 months, mate. That's the moral of his story.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I love this guy to bits. He's Australian and super passionate about motocross and doing these, especially these enduro races. Like he does these nuts.
And he's really good.
Oh, he's insane.
And I think he only got into it like in his later years. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like in his 30s or something. Yeah.
It's a very mental and draining sport what he does, because there's like I had Mike on the podcast, and he was like explaining it to me. So the one, like this enduro one, is you get a map that you download onto your computer, and then you have a starting point and an end point, and it's 3, 2, 1.
Navigate your way
Go.
to there.
Yeah, make it happen. If that was me, I'd be on my phone, Google Maps, plug it in, have my earpiece in, and just have Siri or whoever it is in the background tell me what to do. Because you gotta have your wits about you, you know.
Yeah. Especially when you're in the middle of nowhere, like you haven't got anyone. I imagine they have like a radio where they can call for help, but you might be 100 kilometers away from help.
Absolutely.
Lying in a ditch.
Some of the stories I've heard is nuts. It's nuts. So, all right, that's cool, man. Another thing also about Liverpool, every single Scouse person that I've met, they either enjoy football or they enjoy boxing.
Yeah.
Some of them both.
Yeah.
But like that's their thing. It's one.
Go like, down one route or the other.
Absolutely. Carl Robacker.
Kyle.
Yeah. He was super passionate about boxing. I think he also followed that route. I'm not too sure if he follows football, but 90% of our conversations was always about boxing and mixed martial arts. Okay, great, man. So you ended up, as you were saying, moving into the fitness industry. Was that in the UK? So you came back from your 6 month...
well, the 6 months actually, so we had plans to travel 6 months around Asia, doing Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and everywhere. And when we were kind of coming to the end of that 6 months, like me and Chloe, my girlfriend, was deciding, okay, where do we want to... what do we want to do next? Do we want to go home, or... how do we kind of extend this travel experience on a little bit? And we met a guy when we was in Vietnam who was a recruiter for English teachers across Vietnam, Cambodia and China. So then we ended up getting in touch with him. He got us a job interview to go over to China. And then we ended up living in China for like 18 months.
Really?
Yeah, so we were teaching English in a language centre, like an after school centre from like 4 p.m. till 8 p.m. Just teaching like 4 or 5 year olds, well, not 4 or 5. I think they were quite young, some of them, like 5 or 6 to like 12 or 13, kind of teaching English there. And it was like in that time where I was always into fitness anyway, during like studying and my job as a building surveyor, and I was really heavy into like triathlon, and continued like my triathlon training when I was over there for that whole 18 months. And there wasn't a lot going on where we lived. It was like, we lived in a town called like Zhangjiagang, which was like 2 hours outside of Shanghai, and then we lived another 30 minutes outside of that city, and it was literally just me and Chloe. We were the only Western people who lived there, so there wasn't much else to do other than like work. And then I would go and like do like a 1 hour swim, and then the next day it would be like work, 2 hour bike. So I was like heavy into triathlon at that time, and obviously having that big 18 months of like reflection of not really like enjoying what we were kind of doing, but it was kind of like a means to an end of we were saving up a little bit. And it was in that time when I was like, this fitness is a passion of mine. Why don't I make that the path going forward? And then that's when it kind of like I made that decision of like, okay, when I go back to the UK, I'm going to start sign up on a course, my personal training course. Yeah. And then I actually didn't go back into building surveying. I got a job as an electrician with a friend of mine. So I was working as an electrician alongside studying the personal training course, and then naturally started to take on some clients as a personal trainer, as well as doing the electrical work. So I was doing like 4 days electrical, 1 day of like the personal training, or like I was building up PTs in the morning, in the evening, and then kind of like filtered out the electrics, and then was doing like 3 days, 2 days, then flipped it to 3 days PT, 2 days electrics. until the personal training was
the bread and butter.
Yeah, the bread and butter, and was taking up the majority of the time.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's a wild story. What was the experience or the cultural experience like in China?
It was good.
Being the only two in a city that's
I mean, it was
2.5
quite intense.
hours
Yeah.
away.
It was quite intense. I mean, there were more expats that were, but they were like a 30-minute drive away from us. So every weekend we would kind of go and meet up with those guys and hang out and everything. But during the week, we were just like kind of on our own. But we'd go to the supermarket and we'd be walking around the supermarket doing our shopping, and there'd be like you kind of see out the corner of your eye somebody would be like videoing you, and you're like, not again. And
You're famous.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like they were trying to hide it. They were like sometimes they would come over to you and be like videoing you, and you're like, or they would come over to the trolley, and then you would like look at what you were buying, and they would pick it up out the trolley, and then I'm like, it's the same fruit that you're buying. And you know, after a while, you just got.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But after a while, at first you were kind of a little bit like, oh hi, you okay? And then after a while, just stop it, will you please? Just go away. Or you'd be swimming in the pool, and then obviously there'd be no phones or anything by the pool. And then I'd finish my session with like big massive goggle marks and like still have the swim cap on, all beetroot red in the face. And then someone would be there like, can I get a photo? No, thanks.
You've just experienced in 18 months what super stardom really is.
Yeah.
You had paparazzi around you all the time, man. That's insane.
We made the mistake of going to a water park.
Tell me.
The only Western white people in this water park. I thought the supermarket was bad. Everyone was like, me and Chloe, because we got invited with by the teachers of the school, and we were like, okay, we can't really say no. We've only been here a couple of months. The owners of the school, so we were like, okay, we'll go. And it was like another 2-hour drive away from where we lived, more into the sticks. And obviously we got there, and then when we got there, we were like looking around going, oh my God, like this is a mistake. You know, it wasn't too bad for me, but I think Chloe obviously felt a little bit more uncomfortable as well. But
you know,
we just went and sat in the lazy river and tried to hide the whole time we were there.
To their defense, I mean, in general, it's like if you're in or part of a society that is only used to their own, and all of a sudden these foreigners, because it's not like you're in a big capital city, it's not like you're in a place that is a hub for tourists and people coming from all over the world, and then you rock up there. I mean, I'm trying to envision it where if I was part of a society and I only knew this small group of people, and all of a sudden this random person that doesn't look like me, everything is different. You know, it is a shock. It's a complete shock.
For a lot of them, it could have been the first time seeing
ever.
Yeah,
absolutely. Wow.
Not that you could tell.
Yeah. And in terms of communicating and getting by,
Google Translate.
Okay.
I was literally even the owners of the school. They couldn't speak a word of English, so we would like Google Translate, or we would communicate what we were trying to say, and then they would read the screen, and never translated it like
it's
fully.
never perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that was literally how we had to communicate with most of the people there. But then they did, after like I think a couple of months, they did employ someone who was like our point of contact, who could speak English, and we could translate through him.
All right. And educating the younger children, was it? It was something new for you,
yeah,
right?
Completely new. So we just done like in order to, obviously I don't have a teaching degree or anything, but we done like a TEFL course. So it was like teaching English as a foreign language. It was like 100 hours. We done that when we were like sat on the beach in like the Philippines, just both doing our like TEFL courses because we had this job opportunity lined up. But then it was obviously, you can imagine the level of English was not great.
Zero.
It was zero. So we went to Shanghai, done like I think it was Shanghai or Beijing. We done a 1 week training by one of the like the curriculum providers to the schools. We done like 1 week of training with them, and it was just pretty like they gave you the slides to follow. You'd follow the slides, and it basically be like holding a picture up of like an animal and saying like, what is this?
So you essentially used their method for the school.
Yeah, you were given the whole curriculum, the slides and the classes and everything. You didn't have to do any of the class program or design.
It's crazy, man. Being in that type of society in an area that is very, very uncommon, it's something that's totally out of you and your missus's comfort zone. Were there any facilities where you could actually go out and train, or is that why you chose triathlon training?
There was, but I suppose like you would probably have that same uncomfortable feeling of being the only like Westerner in the room. And at that time I was massively into triathlon. So obviously you just lace up your shoes and go for a run. And I bought what was it? Like the indoor trainers.
Yes.
Like a Wahoo kicker so I bought one of the indoor
like
trainers.
A what bike?
Yeah. Well, I bought a bike when I was over there.
It was just the back end machine.
Yeah, the back end machine
that you connect your bike to.
Yeah, you take your wheel
bike
off.
trainer.
Your bike trainer. Yeah, hooks up to like Zwift, and I used to literally just do most of my biking in there.
Okay. Okay. And I'm assuming you were close to the ocean, or were you doing everything in the pool?
Everything was in the pool.
Okay, I see.
Just pool swims.
Oh wow.
Indoor bike, and then outdoor running.
Outdoor runs.
Yeah.
Insane. But that your triathlon background comes from the UK. You were doing that in the UK.
Yeah. So obviously, when I was kind of like the later part of studying in uni, probably like third year uni is when I really started to get into like triathlon. And whilst I was studying as a building surveyor when I was practicing as like a building surveyor for like 2 years, that whole 2 to like 3 year period, I was like heavily into triathlon. Was like with 2 friends of mine back at home.
Was that just a random thing, or was it something that you saw on social media, like, oh, I'd like to try that?
A friend of mine said, like, there's a triathlon, like a local triathlon, literally 10 minutes down the road from us. It was an open water swim. It was Olympic distance triathlon. I thought I could swim until I'd done the triathlon. I was like, yeah, I can swim, like everyone says. And he was like, you fancy doing it? It's in like 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, we've not got any training, but I consider
for fun.
Yeah, we'll just do it for fun. And then just jumped into that on like 2 weeks' notice. Yeah, went to the pool, just practiced it was like done the first swim in the pool and couldn't swim like 4 lengths without like stopping. I was like, what we signed up for? Never done open water swimming until that race. So was just going from like one side to the other, zigzagging.
Can't sight.
Yeah,
for the life of you.
Put your head under the water, and I almost had like a panic attack because it was just black. And then there's like a mass start. You're all, treading water, like 3, 2, 1. The gun goes off. I'm like at the front, thinking like I'm a good swimmer. These people just come over the top, like punch you on the back of the head, like kicking you in the face. And next thing, I'm just doggy paddling, going, I've got to swim I've got to survive for 1.5k now.
This is going to be our advertisement for Ironman races. How to start swimming 2 weeks before.
2 weeks before.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. It's funny. A lot of people ask me like, what's the most difficult part of the race? And I always tell them it's not the swim, but the swim is the most fearful. And especially, I think if you're not comfortable in the water and you're not comfortable swimming, then that's a massive fear, because at the end of the day, like the fear of drowning is massive, and but in the context of the sport, it's the shortest part. Yeah. So like, realistically, if you just floated or doggy paddled, you'd make it. Yeah. You'd still make it back, But yeah, I'll never forget. I had a very similar experience. We decided to just. It was just basically after COVID. Well, during COVID, I bought a bicycle and I was like, man, I need to get out the house. I can't keep doing these indoor training sessions. And I take my bike and I just float off. Because, they got the OCT over here, the cycling track.
Yeah.
So I'd just be cycling up and down. Nothing more than around 35 Ks at most. And it became fun. And I always backed my swim. Because I did water polo for a few years. So in terms of like 25 meter lengths, I thought I was pretty decent,
25 meters, stop, have a breather.
Yes.
Another 25 meters. I can swim. I'm a good swimmer.
Mate, 100%. 100%. So we did these, Qatar's got this really nice series of sprints. One's in Education City. The next week, or 2 weeks after, 2 to 3 weeks after, they do it in Qatar. And then they have the LaSalle one. So there's like 3 or 4 really nice ones. Every 2 to 3 weeks.
When do they start?
It's beginning of the year. I think the first one is in, I don't want to lie to you, but I've got a feeling it's November. But I think the season starts like in end of January, end of February, end of March, and then the last one end of May. That 4 on the trot. As soon as it comes live, I'll let you know. It's loads of fun, man. Anyway, so the first one's in the pool. The other 3 in the ocean. Okay. So the first one we decided we're going to do Education City, 500 meters off onto your bike, 20 kilometers, and then the 5K run. I'll never forget that first one, bro. It's a 50 meter pool, so it's 10 lengths. Okay, so you're swimming up, across, down, across.
Oh, it's like
down.
a zigzag all the way down
zigzag.
the pool. Not
it's
like
great.
you're not going in.
No, it's a zigzag, because otherwise, it's not saying that people want to cheat, but you can forget. And then at the same time, if you want a marshal there to count all your reps, it's like, so they just made it easy. They just made it 1 to 10, which is great.
Yeah.
So like you have to get to the 10th marker, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll never forget, bro. I jump into that pool and it's, you dive in. So it's great. Like your first 50 meters is technically like 30.
Yeah.
You just, I get halfway and I can feel the lactic acid building in my lats and in my triceps. And to me, I felt like Michael Phelps. I was just passing everyone, just. I got halfway.
Was this a 400 meter as well, or
500?
Oh, 500, yeah.
Yeah, got halfway to about 250 moving onto the 300. And what felt like rocks under my arms while I was trying to swim, people started passing me. And I was like, oh, here we go.
Going backwards.
That's literally how it felt, man. When I got to the 10th, I came out and I was like, okay, well, I'll redeem myself on the bike. I was so out of breath because I wasn't focused on my breathing. I was just literally at that point was just, it was terrible, mate. But the good thing is that after that experience, the bug bit, for sure. I wouldn't say as like to try and do it professionally, but it's a great way of actually testing your fitness outside of the gym. And I think being in the gym is an amazing experience, and especially as a coach, like always advocate for it. But that sense of doing something outside, I don't know, it just feels very rewarding to me in a very strange way. Like that little bit of suffering of doing something outside, I don't know, it almost feels actually quite functional. If that makes sense, like trying to test your body on an outer limit outside just feels, So
also something new, if
absolutely.
Like that's kind of the feeling that I had when I went from triathlon into CrossFit. Was kind of like that new level of challenge. So if you're comfortable in the gym, or you kind of reach the point of where you feel like obviously you can always improve, but you've got like all the newbie gains and you're 3 years in, and then you kind of want that new challenge, So it's for the likes of me and you, we've probably done it like the other way around. I went from triathlon to CrossFit, and then now to kind of like a little bit more to the Hyrox space. Whereas I imagine you came from like more the CrossFit background into, was it more recently you kind of got into the triathlon?
Very, very. Yeah. It's been exactly 2 years of 1 year of playing around, and then 1 year of like, I'm coaching. Doing this.
Yeah.
Exactly. Get a coach. Started my online training. Asked as many stupid questions as possible, especially on the bike stuff. I didn't realize like how effective you can be on a road bike in terms of just the basic components, like
saddle height, seat position,
everything. From your wheels to your tires to what type of group set you're using. I'll never forget, like, I just went to go buy a bike. I was just like, road bike. Yeah, it's nice. What does it need to have? Okay, carbon fiber, sweet. Oh, here's one. It looks nice. Yeah. It's a cool color.
And then you start needing to have deep pockets for cycling.
Bro, I purchased it. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then like, I was so silly. I should have done the research before, like to understand like what to look for. Because after like 2 years, I've now realized that the frame, like some people will disagree with me, but the frames for me it's useless. You can buy any carbon frame to an extent, and it will just give you whatever that frame does. But the real important bits is your wheel set, your group set, like all these type of things make a huge difference. And then after that, of course, your aerodynamics, so your seat height, your saddle height, and the way you positioned on the bike. And then after that, like your helmet. And I mean, I was having this conversation with my coach, shout out to Bonnie. And like he's super anal about it. Because like for him, he wants to get every single inch. So even to the point of like calf sleeves to get more aerodynamics. And like, you know, when you do races, you put these the stickers on the bike so that people can see your number. Like for him, he won't wrap it around the
and then
back
have
end
it like have it coming off like a tail, like causing drag.
Exactly. For him, like if you're willing to do that, then you're willing to give up like X amount. And for me, like I'm just a complete, you know, I just want to say rocket. Like I'll slap it on the top of my forehead.
Yeah.
Like I don't really.
But I think sometimes people can go too far into those like marginal gains rather than looking at the bigger picture of like having like sufficient like the training, you know.
Absolutely. I think those things don't play a factor when you're learning.
Yeah.
When you're building fundamentals, you know, and you're trying to get better. But when you're trying to break 4 hours.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
You know, and that, I mean, again, like we now you're cusping on the edge of like pro athletes. So I think then those marginal gains are like 0.01s.
Yeah.
But when you're learning, it's like, okay, because often as a student of the sport, a lot of people will use those marginal gains as an excuse of why they didn't do better. But it's like, no, bud. You just got to train.
Yeah.
You actually physically need to sit on the bike for longer and push harder. So I think there's a time and a place for when you get to that point of elite level. I'm sure when we get into Hyrox, you would probably know yourself too, as you're busy building into this, where like you can make just these minuscule differences on a specific movement, whether it's the way that you turn off the rower or climb off, whether it's the way that you pace a certain exercise, how that's going to benefit you. Like,
just to save like 3 seconds.
Exactly.
Yeah. But obviously 3 seconds over 16 stations.
It's a lot.
Add up, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot, man. So yeah, but again, that's how I got into triathlons. And the last year I've done 3, and I'll probably do another 2 before the end of the year. So I'm
Where's your next one?
Dubai, T100.
The T100.
Yeah. I'm so excited, man. It's something different. It's my first race outside of Ironman. So I'm really excited to see the level of, not necessarily competition. I just want to see the level of the event organizers, you know, because T100's blown up. In terms of social media, it's a beautiful presented race. And they've positioned themselves in certain races that have really gone viral. Like this last race in Singapore was horrendous, man. The weather was like 60% humidity, or if not higher. It was super warm. So like for the pro athletes, they were suffering, bro. Like cramps. It was intense. But they got a super viral ending where it was like neck and neck, one-on-one to finish it.
Who was it? The neck and neck?
Bro, I can't remember the names, to be honest. I'll be butchering it. But
is it 100 miles or 100
it's
kilometers?
100 kilometers.
In total, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little bit shorter than the Ironman race, but not to an extent where you're going to feel okay afterwards, if that makes sense. Like we're talking like
what's
2
the
or 3.
split
It's a 2 kilometer swim, so it's a little bit longer by 100 meters, the swim. And then I believe it's an 80 kilometer bike, and then an 18 kilometer run. So, yeah, we're about...
Not too dissimilar to the 70.2.
No, it's about, I think, 12 or 13 kilometers shy. And most of it is off the bike. It's 10K shy off the bike and 2K off the run.
Off the run.
So, again, I don't think it's still going to be tough. It's not like you can't compare it to like a Olympic race, if that makes sense. And 10K is different off the bike. Realistically, you're looking at, I mean, maybe 15 minutes shorter. You know, so it might be my first sub 5 hour. That's what I'm hoping for, and then to repeat that again in Bahrain.
When's Bahrain? February? December.
So I've only got a month.
I would like to do a 70.1 or 70.2.
It's a 70.3.
Oh, 70.3?
Yes.
Well,
70.3 miles.
Yeah. The furthest I've ever done is just the Olympic.
Bro, join us.
Yeah.
We've got a really good group going for Bahrain. It's the first week of December, so we got 6 months. It's more than enough time, bro.
Go back to my roots. No training.
Yeah. No, don't. Yeah, just a couple of pool swims.
Yeah, just wing it.
No, we got a really good group, man. There's about 10 of us. So yeah, you can just jump on my program.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Start off, you know.
I mean, the running kind of will align with what I'm doing anyway.
Exactly.
You know?
I mean, what I really love about the program that I do, and I advocate for it all the time, is because I got fucked up knees. So
from your background in
rugby,
yeah,
I tore my shit up, man. So that's actually how my my sporting journey into fitness started, was off the back end of rugby. Rugby was the sport, and lifting was the component to get better. And then found CrossFit through that, and then that all led up to me snapping my shit. And then I realized, longevity is the key. And now I train to carry my grandkids, hopefully, when I'm 80, you know. But I still completely advocate for still doing sport. I feel like if you don't have something to push towards, being in the gym can sometimes be, you can't just use motivation, man. You need reps, you need consistency to stay in there. So I feel like if you choose a sport that will push you to stay in the gym and get better and be healthier, and then when you do that sport that you work towards, it's like the bonus, you know?
Yeah, it gives you something to work towards. I know after every like Hyrox event that I finished, or like that I've done, you know, you kind of complete it, and then the 2 weeks or 3 weeks of training after that, I'm like, should I really, like, what am I doing in the gym? You know, I've got nothing to kind of work towards, so I'm kind of just going into the gym, not following my set program, just kind of doing whatever I feel like. A bit of chest today, okay, do a bit of legs the next day. But when you have that little bit of a goal or a target to work towards, you can really like dial in your training, and gives you more than motivation.
Absolutely, man. I was having this discussion with someone on social media, and he was saying, well, you know, for me, I don't feel that sport is essential, you know. And so I asked him, like, well, what do you do? He's like, no, well, I'll go to the gym. I do my compound lifts, my bench press, back squat, deadlift. Essentially, what it seemed like was a bit of powerlifting. So I said, well, do you track your weights that you lift? It's like, yeah. It's like, okay. And you have a workout routine that you do every single day that you follow? Yes. So I was like, okay, so you have chosen a sport. You're just not participating in the actual sport in terms of like, you're not going to a competition, but you're still playing a sport. The fact that you're tracking, the fact that you're trying to PR lifts, the fact that you're doing your accessory work, you monitoring what you eat in, you're checking your sleep, all these things are still a form of I almost want to say keeping you motivated, keeping those reps going, you know. It's the same as bodybuilding. It's like, oh, well, you know, people train to look good and they check their diet and they eat accordingly and they make sure that they're on a calorie deficit and blah, 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 blah. That's still a sport. The only difference is you're not sitting on stage, you're going to Ibiza. But you know what I mean? You're still advocating that or you're still utilizing that sport as a tool to stay in your, not in your lane, but stay focused in what you're doing.
I suppose that's what I've done quite a lot with CrossFit for like 3 years. I was always training in the back of my mind with like, I'm going to compete in a CrossFit event, which I still actually haven't done until hopefully the Phoenix Games, where I'm going to be doing it with hopefully with Jay and another guy. We haven't got that third member yet, but in the back of my mind, I was always like, I'm training for this competition that I've not booked. I don't know when it's going to be, but when it comes, I'll be ready for it.
Well, that's
so
the thing.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Anyway, jumping back to your fitness trail, you started with triathlons. The bug hit you, and you continued that for a few years.
Yeah, probably about 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you ended on Olympic distances only? You didn't go anything further than that?
Never any further. Yeah, never like the half Ironman. It was just always, well, mostly Olympic distance, and then I'd done a few sprint distances as well.
They're so fun, bro.
Yeah, I always favoured the sprint as well, though. I always feel like I'd done a little bit better in the sprint than the Olympic distance.
Well, anything outside of even the Olympic distance, was that still a 2-hour race?
Yeah.
So you're really, I would say, for me, realistically, anything over, I'm going to say almost 90 minutes, like you're in an endurance race.
Yeah.
You know, so you fuel and being smart about your fuel timing, like all these type, and then also putting in like long, hard reps. All the mundane, boring stuff, like it's important. So I think the nice thing about the sprint is it's still explosive. You know, you're never really spending longer than 30 minutes on activity. So it's bang, 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 you're pushing it out. So it's a nice way that's a really nice way to test your, I want to say like your power output. You know, you can really maximize, you can push that threshold.
Yeah, because you notice like the longer the distances go, then you see the frame of the athletes go like smaller and smaller and smaller. Right. And I think that's something that kind of deterred me away from continuing in triathlon, because I felt like I was becoming like quite weak, you know, but I was probably putting too much emphasis into the swim, bike and the run, and I wasn't doing any kind of strength training or hypertrophy training at all alongside that. So I felt like, well, now I'm sitting around like 85 kilo. In the height of triathlon, I was like just under 70 kilo. Wow. Yeah, so I was like, the lowest I think I ever got to was like 68, 69 kilo.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good weight.
Yeah.
That's a great weight. I've never raced the Ironman race under 80. The closest I've gotten was now in Venice. I did a race in May, and I was 81 or just under 80 on race day. That was the lightest I've ever been. It's tough, man. Look, it's tough. Like the good thing is that what I really love about the half Ironman races or the triathlon races is that you still have the swim and the bike, so they're very low impact. Even though you're putting in miles, there isn't a lot of impact on your body. And this is what I was trying to get to, is that's why I love this coaching methodology from BMC is they really hammer the swim and the bike. And the good thing about it is that on the bike you're still getting the endurance, let's call it points, for when you get to the run. So you're still building that capacity without the impact, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you see quite a lot of guys in the Hyrox space doing like 60% of the endurance training of like on the bike to try and like limit the amount of impact on the joints.
100%,
because obviously they've got to do a lot of volume still of like lunges, wall balls, you know, the sleds. It's kind of really trying to reduce that volume.
Exactly. Islam, he did that fasted marathon, and in his training block he had cycling I think 2 to 3 times a week, and then running 2 to 3 times a week to try and reduce the impact load on his joints. So what I loved about it was, because I had an injury in my knees, that I could utilize this method to still get better. And every single race, thank goodness, till now, I've beaten my time by a minimum of 9 to 12 minutes each time, which is amazing. And I'm still not that light. I mean, frick, man, 81 kilos doing a triathlon race, you almost, you kind of feel thick around everyone, if that makes sense. Like I'm walking around with my wetsuit and like people are looking at me like, who this guy doing here? You know what I mean?
There's some good guys though. Even when I was doing it, like I was on the bike and then this guy had come past, and I'm like half the size of him. Like, how's he coming past me on the bike?
Bro, the bike is the most deceiving one out of them all, man, because you'll be cycling and you think you're putting the watts down, and then there'll just be this other guy next to you, and he's just
past you like it. Yeah.
We've got a cycling group every Friday morning. And triathlons, I swear to God, it is the only sport I've ever done where you cannot judge anyone on their frame.
Cover. Yeah.
You can judge no one on their frame, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Zero. You get there, you're like, I got this. Until they start whipping those legs, and you realize, like, oh man, you've got work to do. Mm-hmm. It's not that I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how I can't do it, but at the end of the day, it's good because it's for me. I love it. I love it when people beat me. It's motivation for me to go, okay, I just got to put in some more work, and I'll keep doing my thing, put the blinkers on, and push through.
It's one of them sports as well where I think it favors the older athletes in the sense that, like, if they started it when they were in the 20s and then now 40s, they've got more volume, you know, under the belts. Maybe like with anything, you know. Yeah. But you see, like, the 40-year plus, I think, is almost like the hardest category in triathlon.
Absolutely.
Because mental resilience as well over that time.
For sure, man. For sure. I couldn't agree more. For me, when I look at it, I 100% agree with you. I think subconsciously that's probably why I started it. Mm-hmm. Like, I wanted to dip my toe into doing something outside of the gym, and then when I got into it, I was like, oh, this is something I can do till I'm 60, you know? Because even though you're racing with thousands of other people, you're only worried about your time. Mm-hmm. It's so weird. Mm-hmm. Like, you're only worried about your time. Nothing else phases you. Well, for me, that is. Mm-hmm. And I think, realistically, I was like, I could do this. I could do, and not Ironman races in general, it's just triathlons. Whether it's sprints, Olympic distances, like this type of thing, I just felt like something that could be consistently repeated till whenever, which is, I think, why I didn't really think of it until now. It's probably why I started it. But it's also great to be outside.
So how did your training split look like now then for preparing yourself?
I mean, that's a good question. So I take these endurance races like a sport. So I build up. So for instance, if I take a 12-year block, ideally I want to do 2 races a year. So I've got 6 months of training, and each 6 months is 2 months off season. So just get strong as hell. Then I've got 4 months left. I'll have 1 month realistically to essentially start enjoying it again, like dip my toe. So I'll start swimming twice a week in the pool, just doing laps. And I'll run twice a week, 1 interval, 1 zone 2. And then cycling will be optional depending on the weather. Like now in the summer, I can't get it in me to go outside and cycle. So I'll do maybe like bike intervals on the C2 bike or watt bike, but it's not serious.
So how do you integrate your like resistance training into that? Because I think that's a really important aspect.
This was the toughest thing. This was the toughest thing because at the end of the day, that's all I did was essentially resistance training and obviously your 5 to maximum 15-minute CrossFit workouts. If you're lucky, once a week, you'll do like a 30-minute EMOM. But ideally, it's always between that 5 and 15-minute mark. So, yeah, again, out of that 6-month block, the 2 months would be consistent, 99% resistance training, not worrying about doing any running, cycling, or swimming. And then dip my toe in on the 4th month. And then I've got 3 months left. And those 3 months would be now offloading any functional intensity movements and only focusing every single day. One day, if we're on a 6-day block, it will be swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run, and each one will, out of the 6, 2 will be intervals. Out of the 6 days, it would be swim, bike, run, or for instance, say intervals, and then swim, bike, run, zone 2.
In that 3-month period.
for 6 days a month for 3 months.
Yeah.
And obviously having a coach that will build so that we peak, I almost want to say, on the month of the competition. And
which will be like at the end of that 6 month
exactly.
window.
Essentially 2 weeks before the race, you're already tapering and you're doing everything at a point where like you feel like you're not doing enough, so you get a bit nervous. You're like, it's like this is not enough training.
Yeah.
You just got to trust. You just trust the process. Exactly. You actually, for me, every single time before a race, like the month before the race, I'm like flying. I feel like, man, I am on fire. And then I get a bit nervous. I'm like, I've got to keep this. And then you'd think you need to do more, but then you see it. You'll see it in the program. You're like, oh shit, we're going less. What's happening? Have I still got what it takes? And the mental game start playing. But then talking about the resistance training. So in those 3 months, like I said, all the CrossFit goes out the window. And I weight lift once a week. So I'll do cleans and snatches once a week for 2 months out of the 3 months. And then the last month, no resistance training. It's just
very specific.
Looking after my body to a point where it's like more massage, double up on the foam rolling, Theragun, just making sure that I'm moving well. So yeah, it will be weightlifting once a week. That's just because that's something that I enjoy, and you don't need to do it at all. I don't even recommend it. It's just, this is like just a love for me.
Yeah, you do what you enjoy.
Exactly. And then I've got, so that's once a week, and then resistance training twice a week. And it's purely accessories, bodybuilding, step ups, your dips, pull ups, nothing intense, just not even hypertrophy. It's just more like, I want to say maintenance. So it will be 3 sets of 2 different exercises rotating around, and my go-to is for lower body is always step ups. It just helps benefit the hip flexors and glutes for running and cycling, and then I always add in for upper body will be a form of a shoulder press and a lat pull down or pull up, and loads of tricep extensions for the swim, and also sitting in that position for the bike. I feel like the body really wears down on that end, so the ski erg actually works quite well.
Yeah, well, I remember when I hadn't swam in ages doing triathlon, but I transitioned from the triathlon into the CrossFit space, and we had a ski erg in the gym. So I always used to just like hammer the ski erg. And then when the 2 buddies of mine who were still in the triathlon space were like, triathlon's coming up, do you fancy jumping onto it? And I was like, okay, I'll do it. Haven't really been running, cycling or swimming. Haven't swam in months. Went to the pool, kind of like loosened up in the pool like a couple of days before, and then went and hit that the triathlon, and I PB'd the swim. I think just purely from like all of the
100%.
Obviously, I was super comfortable technique wise in the pool anyway because of all the volume that I built up. But then the lat endurance from the ski erg, I think I got like a 25-minute swim for the 1.5k.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Beat it by like 2 minutes. I think before that was like 27. I got like just over a 25-minute swim. I was like, okay.
That ski erg helps a lot, man. I didn't realize that tricep extension is so beneficial, especially if you swimming efficiently, and even just sitting in the aero position on the bike. If like strengthening that tricep and the shoulder, the back of the like rear delts of the shoulder, is really beneficial, man. So I just break it down into 3 different resistance training blocks, and I split it up. And then I just, what I do is I just build myself an accessory block for 12 weeks for those 3 months. And that also tapers because I'm coming off a 2-month strength block. So essentially I maximize here. I try and, if not PR, just maintain whatever weights that I've lifted previously. And then here is like a 12-week taper. And it's just fundamental movements that complement my triathlon training, if that makes sense. It's boring, it's mundane, it's dull, but it's so essential. Specifically for running. Yeah. It's so essential, man. It's like, I've seen the difference because running has always been my weakest part. Because I'm coming from knee surgery, it's something that always plays in the back of your mind. So I've never ever ran in any race and tried to max out. There's always that little fear at the back of my mind. So that's always been my weakest. But every single endurance race, I've PB'd my 21K in every single race, which is great. So I'm down to a 5-minute 20-second, which is not bad. The goal is to hit 5 by December. That's the goal.
Every K.
And I'll pay a lot of tribute to Hyrox training for that, to be honest. Those interval runs have honestly, they've been a game changer, because I implemented them for my race, because I did Hyrox in Doha. I think it was a week after or 2 weeks after my race in Italy. My race was on the 5th of May, and I think Hyrox was the 15th or the 18th or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was like the 15th. It was like you were within that 1 to 2 week window.
And if it was, I swear to you, those intervals helped, man. Because that was the first time I got close to like threshold pace.
Yeah.
You know, so I've never done it before. I've always been on I wouldn't say that I back off. It's just, you have that, when you have that little devil in the back of your mind telling you like, hey man, you know, you don't want to snap shit. It's an interesting thing, you know. I can never explain it to anyone unless you've been in a position where you fucked your shit up. You won't know. You won't know. So I pay tribute to that, man. Those 1x8s and 1x10s, they're nasty, but they work, because when you hit your zone 2 and you're monitoring everything you need to monitor, you realize your body's getting comfortable running at that threshold pace, if that makes sense. So I'd noticed what I was trying to do. I was trying to hit a 4:30 for 8 rounds outside, no treadmill, and that got quite comfortable at a stage. And then when I was peaking, I was on like a 4:15, and that was like, I knew.
For your Ks?
Yes, 4:15 per kilometer for the intervals, the 8x1s. And I'd noticed, okay, I cannot get better than this for the amount of time that I have for my race, if that makes sense. So I knew that I was at threshold, bro, for sure. I could feel it in my muscles. I could feel it in my calves. Like I could feel, okay, this is probably where I am. And when I got to my zone 2s, I was running 5s, pretty like a 5 kilometer pace for 10K quite comfortably, with like a heart rate variability of maybe, I'd say between 135 and 145, like conversational pace.
The average heart rate.
Yes. So, which has never happened before. So I was really, really happy about that. And then going into the race day, I essentially PB'd everything. The only thing I didn't PB was my transition times. Yeah. But I had to go to the toilet, so, I mean, what to do? What to do?
Hold it in.
Never. Coming off a 2 hour, 40-minute bike ride, I was holding it in enough, man.
I'm guessing it wasn't a number one then. Because you can let that go on the bike.
Oh, listen, that tri-suit is tight.
Yeah. I've been behind a friend of mine. We were on a bike ride. He wasn't even in a race, and he was like, "I'm not stopping for a wee." I'm like, on a bike ride. Come on. If you're in a race, okay, fair enough.
I agree, man.
It's like, no, because we were going...
Stop.
Yeah.
But stop.
I think we were just going for like a PB around this loop. He was like, no, this is a race. Yeah.
Hey, it's all about marginal wins, bro.
Yeah, those marginal gains.
Anyway, enough about me. So tell me, how did you transition from triathlons into CrossFit? What made you actually dabble into the...
To be fair, I think it was because obviously when I made that transition into personal training, looked around building up a few of my own clientele, and then the gym that I started working out of was a CrossFit gym. I never knew too much about, obviously, other than what you see on like Netflix and stuff like that, of like all the CrossFit games, documentaries. Never really participated too much in like CrossFit workouts or anything. But when I got into the personal training, the gym that I was training out of was a CrossFit gym. So I started taking part in a few of the classes, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And I noticed that the longer some of the workouts went on for, like I was kind of doing a little bit better in those workouts rather than like the 5 to 15 minute workouts when it was like a 60-minute team on, for example. Like everyone would be dying off, and I'd be like, okay, I'm still going. I think that was just the endurance I built up from the triathlon. And then just naturally started realizing, okay, I'm okay at this. And you might be like up there with like some of the best in the gym, so you're kind of like the best of not to like have like a mediocre bunch, but it still gives you a little bit of confidence of like, okay, I won that workout, even though it wasn't. You're not really competing. There's no winners, but you kind of know you're being a bit competitive with the people next to you. Then that's when I kind of transitioned into that from working in the CrossFit gym.
All right, amazing.
And then that was obviously for probably about like 3 years. Okay. Before I trying to put a timeline to it of when I first got into it. So that must have gone back like 6 years now. But I was doing that for 3 years before I then got into Hyrox, which was in like 2021 is when I'd done my first Hyrox event. And I came about, I think I seen it on like an advertisement on Instagram. And I seen it was 8 kilometers of running with all these different like workouts in between. And I was like, I've done 3 years of triathlon. I've been doing CrossFit for 3 years. I was like, I think I can win this event.
This is the perfect balance.
I was like, this is me all over. I was like, the longer a workout goes on for, I always seem to do better. So naively, I went to the event thinking, I'm going to win this. And got humbled by the sled straight away. I remember like obviously making all of the rookie errors that you can make, getting excited, started like just running with the people next to me, getting pulled into their race, and they're probably like getting pulled into what like they think is your race, and you kind of just like, oh, just beat that guy to the sled. All right, get to the sled, beat him on the sled, and then next thing I'm walking after the sleds on the first one. Yeah.
Interesting. It's so cool that you kind of found your niche, because again, like you just said, you're coming from a relatively endurance background, then moving into short twitch, high intensity, weight resistant, bang and clang movements, and then all of a sudden this like hybrid combination of both enters the realm. You're like, oh man, this is the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And if you look at Hyrox, it is the sweet spot, man. The way that the company is running, the way that they have set themselves up, it's a great sport. I'll be honest. It really is. I tried it, like I said, I tried it in May. I didn't do individual. I did teams with Althea. It was
two.
Yeah. It was so much fun, man. And exactly what you said is exactly what we did. We picked a target and we were like, we got to beat these guys. And then thank goodness we did. Got to the next station, finished the sled, got absolutely humbled. Came out and I tried to start running, and the legs were like, nah. not now. And it took me about maybe, I'd say 50, 60 meters. I was just plodding. And then I was like, no, okay, we got to be a little bit smarter. Because I'll be honest, we did the whole thing about 2 weeks before my race. Because
it was like a trial, like a
yes,
run through.
I was like, you know what? Firstly, it's teams. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's at least let's just put ourselves in a position. We take two weeks recovery, and we can at least communicate with one another. Like, hey, what can we do better?
And get a feel for the stimulus.
Yeah, get a feel. So we did the whole thing, and we had finished in 1 hour 10 minutes, I think it was, and both of us were like relieved. We're like, okay, we can finish it. The timing's not too bad. It will obviously be totally different on the day because we'll be physically running. We used the treadmill then, and things are just different on game day. But then game day came and we did better, which is great. But that whole marking, it's just the competitive nature in you, right? Like finding a person or a thing or an item to push you past. Where for me, it should actually just be your own game plan. Like, don't worry about anyone else around you. Make sure that you're doing your thing, especially in the running. I feel like the interesting thing about Hyrox, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'd like to get into your headspace on training modalities, eating, nutrition wise, and also how to build yourself up to an extent where you're peaking and utilizing this as a sport. But for me, I feel like the game can get won or lost on the run.
Oh, for sure.
So if you actually emphasize and put a lot of time in bettering your run, the functional, especially if you have a strength background, the functional components, I don't want to say you can use it for recovery, because there are some that just spike your heart rate to an oblivion. But at the end of the day, I think if you could utilize the run as a tool to break your time, I think it would be better looking at it that way than in trying to get better at the functional movement.
100%, yeah. That makes sense. There's when you look at it as a whole, like at least 50%, maybe even more towards 60% of the time for most people is spent on the run alone. So you take the race, which is, well, for some like an hour to 90 minutes, 60% of that time is spent running. So there's potential for like an improvement to be made on 60% of your race rather than like the 40% of your race, you know, maybe for the majority of people. Or that difference between running a 5-minute 30k pace to a 5-minute k pace is going to save you 4 minutes, where you're crazy. Not going to save 4 minutes on, like, you might save 10 seconds on your burpee broad jumps, but I feel like the energy expenditure that you have to put into those the burpees, or the energy expenditure that you have to put into the ski erg to save 10 seconds is huge in comparison to what you can kind of like put into the run if you obviously improve the run the most. And that's something that's like a major focus of mine at the moment, particularly with, I mean, going back, a lot of people who get into Hyrox, I think a lot of them are coming from the CrossFit space anyway, so they're probably well versed in all of the like the functional movements, like they're very familiar with like the lunges, probably some sled work anyway, and like the skis and the row and everything, and burpees. So
it's not an uncommon. It's very familiar. You know, even the sled push and pull. I wouldn't say in CrossFit you use it often, but it's always part of an accessory. You know, and it's always been in CrossFit competitions. Yeah. Maybe not the throwdowns, but if you look at the CrossFit Games, there's always been some kind of push and pull inside the realm of these high-end CrossFit events. So it's definitely not an uncommon tool.
No, and it's probably it's one of those tools that's probably in most CrossFit boxes, and everyone's had a little dabble on it before. But yeah, being from the CrossFit space, being well versed in a lot of the different movements, I think what a lot of people don't do is run, you know, in general. So everyone just does the high intensity workouts, or the 30-minute workouts, or maybe they do like a 60-minute T-moment for the like endurance. So I don't think a lot of people have a big background in running. So that's where definitely for the most part people can make the majority of the time up, or to get a quicker time, you know. For sure.
You like you said, you know, just 30 seconds every round is an extra 4 minutes. That's massive marginal gains, man, on the spectrum of the competition, you know. And especially also, I think another thing that I'd noticed is, and this is only something that I'd really felt in triathlons coming off the bike and moving into the run, is being able to mentally push yourself through that lactic stick, I almost want to say. And sled push and the lunges gave me the biggest lactic buildup. And I think because I've experienced it so many times, like I say, you know, I waddled for the first 50 meters, which I did, but it was easier to mentally get through it. Where a lot of the times just having that lactic build up in your body, most people just, that's like where they snap out. And they go, oh man, okay, well, I'm walking now. You know,
because people might have experienced that feeling for the first time, and then like, what is this? You know, what is this in the legs? And you're like, and that's exactly what happened to me. I was like, going into it, I'm going to win this event naively. And then obviously got to the sleds, and after the first sled push, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't move the legs like I did before. And at that point, it was more like, okay, and now I'm surviving.
Yeah.
Now I'm surviving the race.
Yeah. For people that don't know, the sled push is the second station.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're deep in.
No, you got 6 more stations to go and 6 more runs.
It's hilarious, bro.
Yeah.
I was watching in Doha, came a little bit early, so we watched some of the races, and I remember telling Althea, just keep an eye on the sled push, because the way that Hyrox is programmed, it is actually quite smart. You know, they get you onto the ski, you're feeling fresh, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That first 15 minutes is a make or break. For like the top guys, is like maybe they reach the sled after 12.
Yes.
Maybe for like the average person, they're reaching it after 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And in that first 15 minutes, it's a make or break for the sled.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. I see people get onto that ski and I'm telling you, they're doing 90 seconds pulls, bro. And I'm watching them, I'm like, whew, okay.
Yeah.
This is round 1.
Yeah.
You know, you got 7 to go.
Yeah.
They come out there, couple of deep breaths, they blow themselves out the water going through those the loop for the next K. They get onto that sled. When they hit that first one and get off to turn around, it's just white. It's just their faces are it's like a ghost.
Yeah.
You know, and that's when you realize, like,
No.
oh man, what have I done?
Oh no.
And there's something really special about blowing your wad in a workout that still has so much more to give. And that is like, you can't really reverse. You know, it's not one of those things where you're like, okay, like I'll be okay 5 minutes later. Either you stop and like try and get that heart rate and lactic acid down, or like you say, you're just gonna have to grunt for the next 40 minutes.
Now you're building character.
True.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Let's see what you've got. Okay, I've not been here before. This is where I find out. Can I get it done?
Absolutely.
Can I get across the line still?
Oh man, it's so brutal, man. It's so brutal. But so you enter your first Hyrox race. It ends up being a bit of a flop.
Well, I wouldn't say complete flop. Okay. I still came 6th in age group, I think. Which I can't remember exactly where that placed me overall. But yeah, like with anything I'd done, like the first triathlon I'd done, I kind of really wasn't fully prepared for it. I kind of like done it half-hearted. Well, done it like on a last-minute basis. So I think I signed up for it like a couple of days before or the week before. It was
for fun.
Done it for fun, yeah. I went to work in the morning. I'd done like a few PTs, a few classes, and then I was like, looked at the time. It was like 11 o'clock. My start time was at like 12:30, and it was in Manchester, which is 45 minutes away. So I'm jumping in the car. I haven't ate. Like I've just done like 3-4 hours of work. Just like shot up there, parked the car in the multi-story car park. I'm running over to the event. I'm like, oh crap, it's like 15 minutes in my start time. I just like on my own.
Your warm-up's getting there.
Yeah, I run straight to the warm-up area. I'm like, okay, 15 minutes or 10 minutes before the start time. Just done a few, like one of them. Like, okay, let's go.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, definitely not what I would advise that a lot of people, like anyone does. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Was that a trigger for you to say, okay, well, you know, your first attempt at it, you enjoyed, you like, I almost want to say, you like what you felt, you like what you got out of the competition.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I'm assuming that was your setup for, all right, well, if I do this correctly, I have an opportunity to obviously exceed and do well in this type of sport.
Yeah, well, I remember finishing the event and I was like, yeah, that was cool. Like I never really kind of felt that same feeling after, well, finishing like even triathlon. I kind of felt like that was even more of a challenge, you know, pushing yourself kind of like towards that level. And the difficulty of it, I think, was definitely a lot harder. But I was still kind of like toying with my training going forward from there, because I always kind of had the idea with my training as like being ready for anything, you know. So I kind of like didn't go all in on it until maybe like only the past like 6 to 12 months. Well, maybe even like the past 6 months from now. I've only really kind of went all in specific on, okay, like now I'm going to start training for this after obviously a podium in Dubai. So after like a podium in Dubai, I kind of had the ambition to podium in Dubai, because obviously being sixth in the age group back in 2021, and then I think the later year I done it as a doubles and came third in doubles, and I was like, okay, well I'm making progress for me to, and I think that was like unachievable in the CrossFit space, given, I don't know, like I wouldn't say size, because I think we mentioned about size, didn't we, about some of the Olympic lifters, and I don't think the size and the weight's an issue, but compared to some of the CrossFit competitions, I feel like I just didn't have it there to be competitive. But I felt like I could be competitive in the Hyrox space. Yeah.
When it comes to CrossFit, it's really turned into a serious competitive sport, and I believe Hyrox is going to get there. Hyrox is at a level now where it's entering the sports space. It's a competition. Still at the moment, it's like in a competition space, but it's going to move into a sports space in terms of where people, I mean, I know there are already people that take it as a sport. They've got their sponsorships, they're training hard, but in the spectrum of the amount of people that participate in this competition, I think it will get there. Where CrossFit at the moment is no longer box fitness. Like what you do and what you coach in the gym is maybe, man, I don't want to give figures, but it's minuscule to what you would need to do to achieve being just part of the couple hundred, if not thousands of people that enter the CrossFit Games, if that makes sense. Like your daily box training is not gonna give you enough to get there. So I think just CrossFit's had a bit more time to develop into a professional sport, where Hyrox is going to get there. And because CrossFit is so constantly varied, I also really feel that if you don't have a base from a young age, whether it's gymnastics or weightlifting or some kind of being in a pro sport realm, it's quite difficult to catch up at the age of 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
You know?
When I started when I entered into the CrossFit space, I was already 25, you know, so with like little to no experience of weightlifting, gymnastics, and it's kind of like building all of the volume and the ability and all those.
Exactly. It's like asking someone at 25 years old to stop playing football.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you want to go pro?
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah. Like I've just turned 30 now. I'm like, these guys are 21 in the CrossFit Games, you know.
Crushing.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by the level of athleticism and sport is it's really turned into a sport in terms of like you either need to start young or have a strong base. And Hyrox is going to develop into one of those capabilities, of course. But for now, I think it's attainable for older athletes and coaches to still perform at a reasonable standard for Hyrox itself. And eventually Hyrox is going to get to a point where people are just going to be doing like abnormal numbers.
Yeah, it's growing, it's developing like at a fast rate. You know, people are always, I think year on year, the record is kind of like being broken, except for this year. I don't think it was broke this year, but...
no, for sure. You know what I wonder? I wonder if they'll end up doing like not random, but like set up like what they did for triathlons. You know, you get like a sprint, Olympic, and then Ironman or enduro distance. I wonder if they'll do that with Hyrox, like do Hyrox and then double Hyrox.
Yeah, or if they'll add any variation to it. Yeah, I suppose they do at the moment in the sense that anyone who's coming into it, they can choose the level of like you can do a team of 4, like their team of 2, or an individual. True. And then they've got the pro.
True.
So obviously that's the logical next step. If you do the open, you then go to the pro, which is it's like slightly heavier weights. Of course, the run and everything is still the same. Right. All the movements, same order, same distances, but with the weight increase.
True. I actually forgot about that they have different categories. So you do your first Hyrox race in 2021, you said?
Yeah, 21, Manchester.
So you had, and in the UK, you just went straight back to CrossFit training, essentially?
Yeah, I kind of went straight back to CrossFit training, which I, obviously 2021, I was still doing quite a lot of running volume anyway. I dabbled in a few triathlons with a couple of friends, but never really training specific. And I kind of just trained for anything, you know, like kind of being prepared for anything and everything. But I was on the Matt Fraser's HWPO program.
Okay.
So I was on that for probably like 2 or 3 years, and I just consistently stayed on that one. And I felt like that was kind of giving me what I thought was like enough training to be able to do a triathlon, do Hyrox when it came about.
Absolutely.
And I was just like, I kind of felt like super fit for anything really.
His online program, I must say, I do recommend. It's great. It's great. It has all the fundamental properties for you to essentially get through the week, and like you say, be versatile to participate, especially if your background is swim, bike, run. Having his program is at a good level base to be able to participate in pretty much whatever you want to. All right, so for 2 years you dabbled in fitness in the UK, and then tell us your story. How did you get to Doha?
So I wasn't actively searching for like the job or anything, but we're both familiar with Craig, who's a CrossFit coach out here, or he's been out here for like 10 years, and he's a friend from back home. When he came back home to have his latest child, he came to train with me, and I was just talking to him about how I kind of wanted like a new adventure of like I traveled around Asia and then lived in China and stuff, and I was kind of like eager, or I would like to have like another experience of like working away. And that was like early last year, I think like the start of the year or even before. So then it came round to him, obviously Craig, like opening up a gym over here, and then he must have had it in the back of his mind of when we had a discussion, I was interested in coming out, and he reached out to me like over Instagram and said like, did I fancy the job opportunity of coming out here? And I went home, I told the missus and was like, we could be moving to Qatar. and then she was like, when we packing our bags? And I was like, I'll tell him yes.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah, so then that kind of just kind of came out of nowhere really. Wasn't actively searching, and then arrived here around like 7 months ago now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're coaching out of Vault?
Oh, the Vault, yeah. Sorry, yeah. The Vault Fitness, which we're located in Al Wab, West Walk.
Okay, great.
So yeah, so that's how I kind of find myself over here.
Awesome. How has your experience in Doha been? 7 months.
I've loved it so far. You know, coming from the UK, which is it's always a little bit windy and wet and not so sunny. The complete contrast of coming from that environment to the desert.
I must say that was a very nice way of putting how lush the UK is.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, all jokes aside, I mean, the fact that you and your missus, you guys have that expat mentality and you enjoy traveling. I love the Middle East, man. I've been here 12 years now, and it's such a cool place. And if you can adapt with the culture and embrace the a little bit of sunshine that you get, that's a bit overbearing for 3 months of the year, it's really much of a muchness, to be honest.
I don't find it too bad. I feel like everyone always when we first got here, everyone was like, oh, just wait for the heat and the humidity. I mean, I believe the humidity is not hit yet, but I feel like the heat is it's not too bad. But in West Walk, where we're living, it's a little bit of like a bubble because everything's all air conditioned and everything. So and we're living there as well within the residency, so it's literally like a 2-minute walk away from the gym. So I walk out to my apartment, and then I'm 2 minutes away from the gym. So it's like, and it's all air conditioned. So I'm kind of like, it's not too bad. But I'm
you haven't felt the heat yet, have you?
No,
you're just staying in that bubble.
Just staying there. Yeah, and I travel out on the weekend.
Guys, I don't know what you're talking about. It's great. It's 15 degrees out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, one thing, it's so crazy. Qatar's such a small country, bro. But it's so interesting that wherever you live, you often don't venture that far out. Like, I live on the Pearl side, and anything past West Bay, if it's not work, I'm not going.
You stay around the Pearl.
Anything outside that West Bay, if it's not work, I'm like, sorry, but I'll see you tomorrow. You know? So it's crazy that for a country that's so small, yet I think it's so well designed that essentially wherever you live, you have access to everything from your fingertips, man. Like you say, where you stay is a 2-minute walk to the gym. From the gym, where West Walk is, I'm sure there's a shopping center where you can buy all your...
Monoprix's below, like it's in the same building as Monoprix. So Monoprix's 30-second walk away.
It's too convenient.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's too convenient,
You've been to West Walk before as well, so you've got all the
coffee
cafes,
shops,
restaurants.
It's such an amazing square. Yeah, you literally don't.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful spot. So yeah, Qatar's really designed itself into this way where there are these pockets where you as the resident that's living there, you don't need to go anywhere. You have everything at your fingertips, which is
convenient.
Yeah, man, I don't know if it makes us too lazy or what the story is, but for sure, it's well designed.
The missus went away to Cyprus earlier on, like a couple of months ago, for like 2 weeks. She got back and was like, "What have you been doing?" And I'm like, "I haven't left West Walk." I've just been going to the gym, coffee shop, Monoprix, gym, home.
She must be loving Qatar, man, because for her it's like, oh, I'm going on holiday, and then that's your green light to actually do something outside of the realm that you normally do, and yet you still stay there.
Yeah, just doing the same routine, kind of. But I love it, you know. Of course. Training, then coffee, coffee after training, and then just you know.
The Qatar really has that environment where I must say we're freaking blessed to have, one, like we're speaking about, having everything at your fingertips. But number two, there's also a gym on every corner.
Yeah.
So even expanding yourself outside of where you are, you could pop into West Bay. There's, 3 or 4 facilities there that you can go and dabble in. The sail's another 10 minutes away. There's another few spots. Like everywhere around Qatar are these pockets of facilities that you can go try out. It's, man, we're honestly, we're blessed, man.
That's what I love about the lifestyle here as well. Is like from back in the UK, I was kind of like, you just stay in the one gym, and everyone who'd come to like your gym is kind of the extent of like who you kind of got to know. But moving over here, I feel like the fitness community is like, it's big but small at the same time. It's like you kind of, within the first like month or so, I got to know everyone from all those different gyms, and you're more than welcome to come down and jump in a session with the coaches in each gym. So that's something I've really like enjoyed.
Absolutely. There's this like hidden code for all the functional fitness facilities. I can only speak for them. I'm not too sure about the commercial gyms, but there's this like hidden code with functional fitness facilities where it's like the coaches community tends to travel. Like we almost encourage people from different, or coaches from different facilities to come and, embrace a class with us or a session or whatever it is, where I feel like, even in South Africa, like if a coach from one gym had to go to the other, it'd be like, hey, what's he doing?
Yeah, what's he doing? Is he trying to poach our clients or something? Yeah,
it's nuts, man. There's enough crumbs on the pizza for everyone. To have that mentality of I'm stealing a slice it's baffles me. So you were saying moving into Doha, a whole new environment for yourself. You fit in like a hand in the glove. Leading the classes there at the Vault. They handle CrossFit classes, Hyrox classes.
Like a bit of a range of. Okay. So obviously Craig's background Craig's the owner and the head coach of the Vault. His background is CrossFit for the past like 10 years. So the CrossFit methodology and the programming like runs deep in and kind of what we provide to the members and the clients and the programming for the gym. And then obviously with my Hyrox experience is when Hyrox was announced here to come here in Doha was it May? Yeah, it was May. That's when we started to put on the specific like Hyrox classes as well, and exposing people to like the stimulus that they're going to be faced with, and a lot of sled work and like strongman work, and integrated that into the original program as well.
Okay. And that's something that you created at the Vault, or was it
the Hyrox?
Yes.
No, I suppose it was a co-collaboration between leaning in towards like my experience in the Hyrox space, having dabbled in it back in the UK, and when it's the first time it came over to the Middle East was in was last year in October in Dubai, and then it came back to Dubai in February, and then it came to Doha in May. Right. So it was relatively new in over in the Middle East. So having done it back in 2021, I've had that like the 2 or 3 years experience of knowing what it was like, knowing the stimulus, knowing how to train for it. So yeah, like kind of sat down with Craig and was like, you know, Hyrox is coming to Doha. You know, we should definitely put some Hyrox classes on, which were really like a big success. I think everyone really enjoyed those classes. You know, they were almost like some of the busiest classes were, even though they were challenging and they were probably the quite a difficult class for most people, but they were the ones that people were like really turning up to. And I think that kind of speaks to the volume of it is kind of for everyone, in the sense that like it's limited skill. You know, there's everyone can pretty much lunge, burpee, you know, like wall balls and everything. So the level for entry, I think, is very inclusive, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons for the rise in its success. You know, it's very inclusive compared to a CrossFit comp, for example, which is like highly skilled. And I think that's been obviously one of the reasons it's been so successful in its growth over the past couple of years.
I could not agree more. Absolutely. The fact that it is open for everyone in terms of skill level is what makes it such an accessible sport, you know? And again, like any sport, there are levels. You know, it's like going from playing football with your friends to club football to actually a league football game into then Super League, then Premier, then World, you know, like it's the same thing. So the fact that it's accessible for everybody to participate in is what makes it so enticing for everybody to try.
It's kind of like the same of like a 10. I kind of liken it to like a 10K run. You know, the same sense of like accomplishment, or when people, everyone can, or a lot of people, or most people, there's not much resistance to being able to do it, like a 10K run. And they sign up for a 10K run, train for it. And I feel like Hyrox is similar to that, particularly if you're coming from a background of having a lot of like functional fitness experience anyway as well, like most like functional fitness boxes or CrossFit boxes. You know, it's one of those things where like, cause a lot of people can be put off from competing in a CrossFit competition because of all the movements, and they're like, oh, I can't do, I would never do that, whether that's like a self-imposed like limiting belief. But I feel like when it comes to Hyrox, people look at it kind of different, because they see all these different people from all different like sizes, ages, you know, shapes and everything competing, and they see like, oh, if they can do it, maybe I can do it. And yeah,
very true, very true. I wanted to ask, let's dabble into your training. When you decided to take on Hyrox as a sport, how did that change from your day-to-day CrossFit training, following the Hard Work Pays Off program, into actually pushing yourself to participate and even win these Hyrox competitions?
So I transitioned from the HWPO and I signed up with Hunter McIntyre's program. Can't remember this program name now. What's it called? I can't remember the name of his program, but it's Hunter McIntyre's program, and just decided to give that a go. And
he's the guy with the slogan "Biceps win races."
Yeah, the bulk pony. Bicep wins races, and a couple of other like alter ego names that he kind of has. So yeah, it wasn't too dissimilar in the sense of like, so let's say you break it down into a 6 day training week. Like day one would still be heavily focused around like lower body push, but then I'd dial in a little bit more specific with like the metcons, and the metcons or the workouts would increase in terms of the duration as well, from going from like the typical 5 to 15 minute like time domains to more like maybe a 20-minute time domain, of being a little bit more specific of like sled pushing and things like that into wall balls. Obviously, because when I decided that the Hyrox Dubai was coming up, it was quite close. So I had to start to like really train a little bit specific towards the you know, ramping up the intensity and becoming like very specific to the stimulus and everything I'm going to be exposed to. So I'm trying to think of the program name that I signed up to, but it was basically like his peak program where he was getting you ready to peak, you know, for the competition.
Okay. Was this like a 12-week or 16-week block?
I think it was a 12-week block. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So you had 3 months essentially to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
When I signed up to it for the Hyrox in Dubai.
I signed up to a Hyrox program as well to try and understand the methodology behind it. And what I had noticed was that they, like you say, they still had essentially their lower body day, upper body day, running intervals, lower body, upper body, running intervals.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one that I followed was 2 of them would be more of a bodybuilding, strength base program, maybe a bit of hypertrophy in there. And then the second upper and lower would be more focused on the movements for Hyrox. So it would be like you say, sled pushes, sled pulls, lunges, wall balls, things like that. And then upper body, similar thing, be your burpees. They'd put in some other functional movements in there too. But essentially they were, I want to say, designed to try and get that strength in the functional movements, if that makes sense. And then your running block would be intervals and zone 2.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd run that, and then every week it would just ramp up a little bit more, until it actually, then we did I think it was 12 weeks, so then 8 weeks in, we did a test. Wasn't the full, we decided to do the full,
full simulation.
We're just going to simulate the whole thing, but they had a simulation test to give you just want to feel, you know, how it feels when you're in there. And it was very beneficial. It was very beneficial, and I think if you had like I said, if we had more of a strength base, so the functional movements weren't too much of an issue, but the running was something that obviously was a bit more of a game changer.
Yeah, I suppose that's something that changed massively between like the CrossFit program that I was on and when I started the training a little bit more specific in the Hyrox space. Was I was alternating the days in terms of like a weight-based session on day 1. Day 2 was just completely just a running session. Day 3 back in the gym doing like posterior chain work, as well as some hypertrophy work, or maybe a little bit of a specific like Hyrox workout. And then day 4 would be back to running. Day 5 back in the gym doing strength work and Hyrox workout, and then day 6 would be like a long like endurance piece. So that would be basically 3 gym-based sessions and 3 runs. Okay. And the 3 run sessions would be split up between doing like some threshold work. So doing the 6 to 8 by like 1 kilometer repeats, or like 4 minutes on, and followed by 2-minute rest period, or 4 minutes on followed by 4 minutes easy, doing like some threshold work there. And then the second session would be either like 200, 400 meter repeats, like 10 times, or even up to 15 and 20.
Like a track day?
Yeah, track day. And then the day 3 would just be long 1 hour to 90-minute zone 2.
Okay. All right. It's a lot of running, bro.
Yeah. Yeah,
it is. But like we spoke about, I mean, if you look at the context of the competition, that's where you can chip off the most time.
Yeah.
So I find that from what I've listened to a lot of people that participate in Hyrox, a lot of them would use the functional movements. I don't want to put this down, but essentially to recover. So, for instance, like jumping on the ski, they wouldn't be pushing the pace to an extent of, like, it wouldn't be a threshold pace on the ski. They'd rather use that as an opportunity. Like, I'd rather step off 10 seconds, you know? So instead of rowing a 145, I'd rather row a 155 or whatever the case may be, so that when I get back onto the run, I can
hit that run with intensity. Yeah. That's definitely, like, not to say that, I think on the ergs is where you can really dial off the pace, where you can kind of feel like you take that little moment of recovery, particularly on the row, because I kind of like break up the race into like the first 4, then I recover, and like the first 4 stations and first 4 runs is where you're really kind of like pushing, but you're trying to like really push to the limit without tipping over the limit. Okay. And then, because for me, when you get to that, when you get to the burpees is when I'm kind of like suffering the most, towards the burpees, where I'm really out of breath, thinking, okay, just get this run done and try to hold the pace that you targeted on the run. Get to the row, recover on the row. Because on the row, I only hold like a 2-minute pace on the row, 2 minute per 500 meters, which is not a particularly fast pace. But what I'm thinking is, okay, recover, hit the next run at the kilometer pace that I want to hit. Then again, recover on the farmer's carry, hit that K that I want to hit, and then I'm going to push the last 2, which is obviously the lunges and the wall balls. Okay,
awesome. So if you look at the 8 stations, like you said, you were splitting them up to your first 4, and then where your recovery point is. What do you? I mean, each one is obviously different. Each person has a different, almost want to say, point where they feel they should recover. But if you're looking at 8 stations, right? Your first 4, like you said, you're pushing. But even the sled, like I've noticed there's even a strategy for the sled, because you could tip the scale over on the sled, not necessarily your heart rate, but your legs in terms of lactic acid.
Lactic buildup, yeah.
So how would you then, because you're doing individual, how would you then split that sled up?
I always push the sled, which I recommend, like most people do, is just push it in halves. So you've got to push it 4 times, and each length is a 12.5 meter run.
Okay.
I always break it up into 6 meter pushes. So I'll push it halfway, take like a 5-second rest, and then just keep following that same method.
Okay.
And really trying to like keep hold of manage that lactate buildup in the legs. Really trying to not push to the point where they're screaming at you and they're on fire. Because I feel like when you get to that point, it's really hard to kind of like flush the lactate out.
And in training, are you trying to keep that, so you're working on that same setup?
I will always, like one of the biggest things I recommend that people do, or as a tip, is to always pace it how you've practiced. People get to the competition and then they kind of throw all the pacing strategy or the paces that they've done in training kind of out the window and go above and beyond it. But you don't really know what that is going to feel like, or how that's going to, have an effect on the body in terms of like having that lactate build up or having the heart rate kind of skyrocket and red line. So always like pace the race how you've practiced in training. So it's something I will always practice in, particularly which has worked out perfect for me in the vault, is that we only have 6 meter turf. So I've have to stop anyway at that 6 meters and then go around the other side. By the time I make that transition around the side, it's been like 5 seconds anyway, and then I'll push it again. So I've always just kind of paced it how I've practiced in the gym as well. But I always recommend you just push it into halves, and because it's like 12.5 meters doesn't sound like a long way, but when you're pushing 150 kilo or 200 kilo in the pro weight, it's that 12.5 meters builds up the lactate in the legs if you don't have a little break in between, especially just to get your breath back as well.
And when you say 5 seconds, are you physically timing it, or you just based on instinct?
I'll try and count at 5.
Okay.
4.
I see.
3. Or sometimes I'll have like 2 to 3 breaths, and I'll time it off the breathing. So I'll have like 3 breaths. Okay, go. Or maybe I'll just count 3 breaths, and then I'll push the sled again.
All right.
Yeah.
And then after the sled push, you move into the pull, correct?
Well, yeah, run and then sled pull.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in the sled pull, is it the same methodology?
No, I'll pull the full length of the sled pull. In the open weight, is not too bad. I think if you're maybe like a stronger athlete, or you have like that upper body capability, you can go hand over hand with the sled pull, which I tend to do for like the first 1 or 2 before you go into like the double-handed grip, deadlift, and then walk back. Okay. So I'll probably try to do that until the arms kind of like feel like the screaming a little bit, and then I'll go towards that double-handed pull. pull deadlift, and then walk it back and make the most of that like 2 meter box that you have to walk in.
And then essentially, I'm assuming you'd use your recovery as trying to get the rope back to the opposing side. Because you have to do everything yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're pulling the sled to one side, 12 and a half meters.
12.5 meters length, yeah.
Then from there, you need to walk to the opposing side and pull again. So you could use that as your recovery.
Yeah, just walk over, just, try to settle the heart rate down, get your breath back. As soon as you get over to the side, as soon as you get there, pick it up. Don't try not to wait around. Just using that little recovery. Sometimes, if depending on how you feel, you can have a little jog over, but typically I will always kind of like walk it over and just try to be consistent and not really trying to be the same from start to finish. Even the whole event, it's like what's the maximum sustained like power output you can do over like a 1 hour window, not going too hard and then tapering off towards the back end of the event, but ramping yourself up to that threshold and then just riding that line. And you're kind of you're just flirting with the edge of maybe just kind of going into that red line or that red zone, and then trying to like pull back a little bit and say, okay, that was maybe a bit too much. But having definitely having a pacing strategy is essential.
For endurance races, I've always it's so tough to do, but I've always been coached to start a bit slower than what you think you can.
100%.
So if your running pace is, let's just use as an example 5 as your baseline. If you know your running pace is 5, don't start at 4:45. Start at a 5:20. Yeah. Feel yourself, and you can always ramp
up into it. Yeah. I always try and ramp up into a Hyrox event. Like I said before, the first 15 minutes is going to be a make or break. If you don't ramp that heart rate up gradually, and you're 10 minutes in, you're running like a 4-minute kilometer pace, which is exactly what I think I ran. The first one I done was 3:30 for the first kilometer. The second kilometer was a 4-minute kilometer, and the third run was a 6-minute kilometer. So obviously you want to try and have them from start to finish over the 8 runs. You can kind of discount the first one because it's always a little bit shorter given where you start. It's always like maybe 200 meters shorter, I think. But run 2 to 8, you want them to be almost identical from start to finish. Or like you see the top guys, there might be 10 to 15 second variation between the runs, whereas the people who do it for the first time, they might run a 4-minute K and then a 6-minute K and a 6:30-minute K. They want to be almost identical.
But being in that circle just before the 3, 2, 1, and you got all these
pumping,
people around you, man.
Yeah.
And you see that one guy in the front with his tank top on and he's got his running shorts on and everything's looking slick. You're like, fuck, let's go, baby. And they play that AC/DC in there. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's hard not to. Yeah. It's like you just want to go.
It's like coming out of the, you just come out the gates like the horses, like around the
absolutely.
Track. Boom, go.
Bat out of hell, man. Just.
But if you do that, and within the first 15 minutes, you're ramping your heart rate up to your maximum sustained, like your threshold pace, and then you're hitting that sled where you're about to experience the most lactate build up part of the event, and you're already at threshold, where you're going to go into that red zone where you're now not being able to
function.
Yeah, you're not being able to function or to get that lactate out of the system. So you basically just stay in that zone for the rest of the event. So I think you're always trying to start slower and ramp up into it and keeping the heart rate as low as possible, because when you come off the back of the sled push, your heart rate's going to be at that threshold. So you only want to kind of maybe just about get there after you've finished the 50 meters of sled pushing, because then you're able to maybe sustain that for the rest of the event, rather than hit that red zone or the danger zone before you go into it,
Because it's so early. It's so early in the event. I almost feel like they put it there on purpose.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, well, let's see what you can do after this.
Yeah.
Which is insane. And correct me if I'm wrong, I noticed you've also started an online program?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the Hyrox Academy. So it's basically everything that I've learned over the past 6 years, I suppose, from the even more from the triathlon and crossfit, and now being a lot more specific in the past year of Hyrox. And putting some programs together and providing online coaching for either group or like one-to-one or off-the-shelf programs for people to follow to give them a little bit more structure to their training to better prepare them for Hyrox events, or obviously one-to-one training to give people the education and the guidance towards not making all the same errors that I've kind of made.
Yeah, for sure. So it's Hyrox focused?
Yeah, specifically, okay. Yeah.
All right, great. So if you're someone that's maybe going to start your first race or thinking about doing your first race, would be a good introduction towards it in terms of the training, or even someone that maybe has done 2 or 3 but now really fallen in love with it, and they want to take it on to a point where they actually start beating their times and they start developing or they want to start developing better times.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's like an off-the-shelf like 12-week program, which I think is a really good place for most people to start, which is definitely going to get you prepared for your first Hyrox event, or even if you've done a first one before. I think the program's still the 12-week program's really still good for seeing building you up and improving in all the different aspects that you see in Hyrox. And then obviously I work with people like on a one-to-one basis if given where they are now as a starting point, and
I see.
Being a little bit more tailored and bespoke to them and their individual needs.
Okay, awesome. And tell me, just before we clock out, you end up doing the Dubai.
Yeah.
And you win.
Win in the open category.
In the open category.
So it's not the pro division, it's the open division.
Okay.
Which was I came first in age group, because they also have them broke down into age groups. So you have, I think, like 16 to 25, 25 to 29, 30 to 34, similar to a triathlon, So first in age group, which I think was top 10, I think overall, within the top 10, and then 3 months later, I done Doha, again, first in age group with a 90-second PB. So in Dubai, I think I'd done a 1 hour 3. In Doha, I'd done a 1 hour 1 minute 30, which was like a 90-second PB. And I also came second overall in that one of the overall time. So first in age group, second overall.
Okay. And have you got any Hyrox events that you're thinking of participating in the future? Yeah,
well, there's none at the moment, because I'm waiting for everything to be released in the Middle East. So I'm waiting for kind of the schedule to be released for the Middle East, which they haven't put on yet, which I don't know why, because a lot of the other events that run throughout the world, obviously in Europe, they're on like 6 months before, but maybe like the logistics and the planning and how some things.
I think they're going to also open up to a few more other countries within the GCC.
Yeah, so it's it's been in. So I've been in Dubai, been in Doha, and somebody showed me on, I think, the Hyrox website, whether it was Hyrox ME's website, but they put like a tentative race schedule out of potential locations and dates. And I think the season, if you want to look at it as a season for the Middle East, kind of runs from like November time, I think, until around May. So a few locations were like Bahrain, Oman, Saudi.
Okay.
So I'm going to kind of jump onto as many of those as I can. And
that would be awesome.
Yeah, when they get announced,
Yeah. That would be great, because that's at least half the year of quality events that you can, I wouldn't say cherry pick, but you can at least build yourself up for,
Treat it as like an A race or a B race, or
correct.
Use those as a chance to qualify as well for the World Championships. And I've got my eyes set on doing the World Championships next year as well, because I've qualified every year for the World Championships, but I've only actually done one of them, which was in Manchester in 2022.
Okay.
The 22 to 23 season.
Okay. And this would be open category again?
No, the plan for the next season is to step it up to the pro one.
Okay.
Even though I do have a goal of trying to break that 1 hour, the 1 hour barrier, so get sub 1 hour.
Okay. For the listeners, what's the difference between the open category and the elite or the pro category?
So the distances are the same, obviously same race structure. You've got 6 runs, 6 stations. The duration in terms of like the length, so the burpee board jumps, the lunges, the farmer's carry, all the length and the distance is the same, but the weights slightly increase. So on the sled push, it's 150 kilo for the push goes to 200 kilo. The 100 kilo pull goes to 150 kilo pull. The farmer's carry goes from a 24 to a 32 kilo, dual kettlebells. The sandbag goes from a 20 kilo to a 30 kilo, and then the wall ball at the end goes from a 6 kilo to a 9 kilo ball. Yeah. So all the weights obviously step up a little bit.
So in terms of time under tension,
yeah,
it's a bit heavier.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. Well, Tom, it was beautiful talking to you. Thank you for your time, and I wish you everything the best for the Hyrox competitions.
Yeah.
And shout out to anybody that's looking, obviously, to participate in Hyrox or even do their first one. Reach out to Thomas. He can hook you up with your programs. What's your Instagram handle?
Tom Strettle Coaching.
Okay.
Yeah. And the Hybrid X Academy as well, which is
right.
a separate one.
Awesome, man. Again, thank you so much, bro.
Yeah.
And let's do it again sometime, man.
Yeah, definitely.
When the next competition is upon us and you're in that peak season of training, let's catch up. Let's talk about the highs and lows, and we'll get you on your way before you enter your next comp.
Yeah, and maybe we'll get signed up to the half Ironman as well.
Let's go, baby.
Let's do
go,
it.
man.
Yeah.
December. I think it's the 8th.
Yeah.
8th of December. Anyway, we'll chat,
Yeah.
and I'll hook you up. We put a group together, and let's do it, man. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, look forward to it. Yeah,
All right, so.
cool.
Cheers, bro.
No worries.